Hello and welcome to this week's Elite Audio video, and I apologise in advance because my voice is a little bit croaky today. I think I have the makings of man flu, which will of course require me to be pampered and looked after while I lie there looking decidedly sorry for myself. However, I will soldier on like the brave person that I am. However, this video this week is about 3 mistakes that I see made regularly, almost weekly, that could in theory cost some of you thousands of pounds. Excuse me. They are what I would call well-intentioned mistakes, but they can quietly hold you back in many ways. So if any of this lands close to home, this video could indeed save you some time and most importantly, some money. So mistake number 1. I think it's fair to say that a forum is very much a social space. It's also a great space to feed from others' enthusiasm for the hobby. But the thing about advice from any forum user is that it has zero accountability for the outcome. And I have seen in some forums, I would class this as a, shall we say, a heated debate where one forum user is advising strongly a certain path that an individual should take. But the thing is this, that particular forum user neither knows you, your musical taste, nor your system. And as I say, the advice is fully detached from accountability. I think what genuinely surprises me most is that, and I can give some examples of this, is people that have taken advice from a forum and then very quickly discovered that that particular advice was entirely unsuitable for their system, or indeed the upgrade they were hoping to achieve. And again, the other thing that surprises me greatly is that many of the users that are giving you that specific advice perhaps have never heard the device they are advising you to take in the first place. So again, I think it's fair to say that advice is given on someone else's ears and someone else's bias or indeed preferences. But the thing about it, and here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
As an audio dealer, we are fully accountable, meaning that the advice we give carries with it a certain expectation from you. And it's not something that we take lightly. I mean, you could argue that the advice that's given without responsibility has less value. And certainly that's a part of this process we take incredibly seriously. Your system, and logically we've heard lots of different combinations of different components. And I personally, having been in this industry for over 20 years, have heard a lot of things. I've not heard everything. But the one thing that I would say with absolute certainty is there is a product in our portfolio that will 100% do precisely what it is that you want to achieve. So, mistake number 2. Now, this is a very recent mistake, I've got to say, and one which I'm becoming more and more aware of with interactions with different clients. And the first thing I would say is that AI, in fact, here is an example of where AI can give entirely the wrong advice. Now, in this specific example, I asked ChatGPT to tell me which of the following 3 devices would give me the best sound: the Wim Amp Ultra, the Ever So Low Play, or the Blue Sound Node N330. Now, the reason I chose this is because recently I compared all three. And those of you that watch the outcome of that will know quite succinctly that with unequivocal doubt that the Blue Sound power node was significantly better than the other two. Now, the other two were good, but when it came to base grip, damping factor, separation, authority in general, the Blue Sound was a tier above. Yet here's the advice that ChatGPT gave me, which clearly is a contradiction to my own listening experience. So you could argue quite clearly that ChatGPT is an algorithm-based source. It has knowledge but not listening experience. It aggregates data. It has no means to listen or indeed comment on that listening, because as human beings, the hearing is a sensory experience, and how it impacts us emotionally is something that ChatGPT or AI can never replicate. Yes, it has impressive knowledge, and I think as it develops, it will gain, or we will gain, more confidence in what it tells us. But a very interesting fact about ChatGPT, it also is biased. And I saw a great example of that on Diary of a CEO on YouTube, where Stephen Bartlett was debating with a friend of his as to who was the best footballer. And he said it was Leonardo Messi. His friend said it was Cristiano Ronaldo. So Stephen Bartlett grabs his phone, goes to ChatGPT, types in who is the best footballer, whatever the parameters were. And then he goes, there you go. It is, just as I said, Leonardo Messi. And his mate goes, hang on a second. So he grabs his phone and he types in to ChatGPT, who is the best footballer? And his phone says, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. Well, they both can't be right, can they? But what it highlights also is that ChatGPT will give confirmation bias. AI is being designed with its algorithms to validate you as an individual, validate your opinions, give results that are biased towards your own biases. And that was a perfect example. So coming back to my original statement about AI, hi-fi isn't a spreadsheet problem. It's purely sensory. That's the thing about audio. And while it can give you a starting point if you're simply investigating specifications, and a caveat there too, it doesn't get it right either. It can tell you product A has a built-in streamer, but you may discover it actually doesn't when you go to check it from the manufacturer's website. So cross-checking information when it comes to anything that you're advised by ChatGPT is an essential ingredient to ensure that what you are interpreting as accurate actually is. So to close that off, I would say information is definitely not the same as understanding the complexities of building an audio system. Okay, mistake number 3. So here's the thing. Some systems are indeed strangled, but they're not fundamentally wrong in any way. The system infrastructure, in my opinion, is one of the most overlooked elements of the vast majority of hi-fi systems. Now, I can understand why that's the case, because there is something very satisfying about placing a brand new amplifier or a brand new streamer or a turntable into its pride of place into your hi-fi rack. It's an aesthetical statement piece. You can see where your money's been invested. There's something less romantic, however, about getting tangled up at the back of your rack, swapping cables, or indeed putting in mains conditioning, upgrading a cable, looking at mains filtering, loudspeaker filtering. The list is as varied as it is endless, because when you're sat in your listening position, you can't really see where your money has gone. However, you can hear where it has gone. And this is a place where I think most people should start when they're considering an upgrade. Because the truth of the matter is that if you get that part right, anything you add subsequent or anything that you upgrade subsequent to the foundational element, you know for absolute certainty that your system is sounding the best that it can. Therefore, you do not create a bottleneck in your system caused by inferior infrastructure. I have a great story about that. This goes back many, many, many years ago when Shanling brought out their Amiga Drive CD player. It was called the CDT 3000. It looked like a Simon Says game. It was all lit up, had valves. You could bypass the valve for a solid state output. I had a client very interested in one, took it out to him. In fact, no, sorry, we shipped it out to him. No, in fact, I correct myself again. He collected it from the showroom. And a few days later, he phoned up to say he couldn't hear any difference between the Shanling and his very old Arkham CD player that he had. It was something he'd had for about 10, 15 years on its last legs. He said, I just can't hear the difference. So I went out to his home. I took with me some interconnects, some mains leads, and some mains conditioning. And on inspection of his system, he had the kettle plug leads that his system had, that his components had came with from the factory, and some very basic interconnects. Certainly, he'd spent a lot of money on amp, and this was another big investment. These things back in the day cost, I think they were £3,000 or £4,000. They were not cheap. So I had a listen, and yes, I agreed. I said to him, I can't really hear the difference there either. I said, but let me try a couple of things. So the first thing I did was I removed his existing mains leads. I put in the ones that I'd brought plus mains conditioner, and we tried the same experiment again, and boom, suddenly expansive soundstage, huge separation. The difference from the Shanling to his existing Arkham was so obvious, and he'd never realised that what he had done was strangled his system. We also found further incremental performance gains by upgrading his interconnects. And these should be reflective of the value that you've put into your system in the first place. And this really is the big one in my opinion, and it is where I think most people get stuck. So as there's kind of few takeaways, it should be foundation first and boxes second, because if the foundation part is wrong, every subsequent upgrade is being compromised. And it's very easy to fall in the trap of upgrading a box because in a sense, it feels like you're making progress. But in reality, you cannot tune what isn't supported. So here's the final chapter. So here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
And this connects all three chapters together. Buying hi-fi is very much a human experience, and it is definitely relationship based when it comes to seeking advice from us as a dealer. Systems are definitely tuned, they're not guessed. And it's fair to say the best results come from an ongoing conversation, because we're here to finish that for you, not just sell you a box. And I think that's a very key aspect of the whole process of upgrading your audio system. We will work with you, we will listen to your feedback, and then we may make then a subsequent recommendation. Now, another mistake I think a lot of people fall into here is that if they try something and it doesn't work, they tend to slam the door shut completely. Now, whether that means they go and have a new conversation elsewhere, or it simply means that they give up on the idea for the time being, one way or another, why not work with your dealer or work with us? Because the one thing that I guarantee, if you come to me, if you've got any doubts, one, I will make sure you don't make a mistake. Secondly, I will make sure you don't make a mistake that costs you hundreds or thousands of pounds further down the line. Because if you make that mistake now, and again, this is real world audio dealer experience here. I have clients every week that will come to me and say, I bought product X, I've now had it a few months, I've tried to get on with it, and I just can't. I've done everything that my dealer suggested, and it just does not work for me. What should I do? Well, whatever you do at that point, there is going to be some kind of financial penalty for changing your components so quickly. Now, we will do our absolute best to minimize that, and we have a great reputation for giving incredible part exchange prices, but there will be some element of pain there. Now, in the scenario that I just highlighted, if you'd bought that from us and you weren't getting on with it, the logical thing is to try something else. Listen to the feedback and let's work out what it is that the ideal piece of equipment is what you need. In other words, it will give you more mid-range body, or you want more bass extension, or you want something that maybe sounds, a bit fuller. You want something that has perhaps better damping factor because bass grip and control is something that's really important to you. All of these descriptives are vital, and this is where working with us as a dealer, it's very much a two-way process. We listen to everything that you say. So the thing I would say is this: if you're thinking about what to upgrade next, speak to me before you change anything, because that conversation could theoretically save you a significant amount of money. So this really is, it's not a rant by any means. In fact, it's very much observational on the things that I see in our business daily and weekly. And I see very much a theme of those mistakes getting made repeatedly, and even where one mistake has been made would lead to a second and a third and so on. And it's a fascinating process, the whole discussion about your audio systems. I always feel privileged to be let into that inner sanctum of what is your audio system, and you trusting in me to guide you correctly. And I give you my absolute word that I will do everything I can to, one, find the right device for you, two, make sure that no mistakes are made, three, continue to work with you if that means we try an alternative route, because ultimately my goal is your satisfaction. And thankfully, if you look at our online feedback, you can see our reputation does indeed speak for itself. We never take it for granted. We never rest on our laurels, but we do pride ourselves very much in the advice that we give. So I hope you found that useful, and that being the case, please take a few seconds to like and subscribe, and please turn on notifications, but make sure you turn all notifications on. I'll bring up a little screen grab that shows you what you need to do to make sure that you don't miss out on any of our future videos. We've got some great videos planned. A video that's be coming up very soon is a review and an unboxing on the new Musical Fidelity New Vista 600.2 integrated. I've read some reviews on it. I am genuinely excited to hear it. I think it's going to be a killer amplifier at a kind of a mid-range price, or mid to high-end price point that would certainly give some people access to a really high-performing device that, in theory, might outperform some of its peer group. That's something I'm very interested in hearing. So that one's coming up soon. We've also got our Bristol Hi-Fi show preview. We're in the Matthew Suite this year, so we have progressed from the 4th floor, which was the top floor of the show previously, now to the lower ground floor. We couldn't, I think it's the maximum distance in vertical travel we could have gone. And we're opposite Acoustic Energy. We're in the room that Cyrus had last year. So please come and say hello. It'd be great to meet you. We've got some great systems and some great show offers also available. And yeah, I love Bristol. It's a great energy there. It's one of the best shows, I think, on the calendar. So very much, we're all looking forward to that very much. And as always, as I say, have a great week listening to music. I really appreciate you staying to the very end here. And I will see you next week. Thanks for watching.